watch it on TV.
You can watch it on TV. I'm sure you did, huh?
The October 8th meeting of the Planning Commission of Ascension Parish will come to order. Will the minutes please show that all members are present except Mr. Ori? Will you all please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the staff please introduce themselves?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Lindsay Manda, Legal Counsel.
Ricky Compton, Planning and Development Director.
Ben Moran, Planner.
Lance Brock, Zoning Official.
Mike Petty, Senior Project Manager.
Right, thank you. Have you all read the minutes of the previous meeting, and are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes are approved. Has any staff, has any objection come forward for any of the consent agenda items?
No, sir.
So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Those items are approved. We have next a public hearing to approve or deny the following family partition. NG Cannon property lots NGC-1-A through NGC-1 through C. Alvin Fairburn and Associates. Anybody? Okay, would you like to speak? Staff comments?
The only comment is that they're using an existing private access servitude, so all the current users of it will have to sign the plat to allow the use. Other than that, all the comments have been addressed, so we recommend that approval contingent on all those signatures being acquired.
Any comment among commission? No comment? Do I have a motion in that case?
Could open the
Oh, I'd like to open a public hearing. Is there any comment other than that for a public hearing? Any cards? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. All right, do I have a motion or a comment?
Motion to approve contingent on acceptance of staff comments.
second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. All right, the next one is item 9B, Vinewood subdivision lots 5B1 and 5B2, Earls and Associates.
James Falgu representing Mr. Lambert on the following family partition. I don't believe any comments were made. Asking the commission for approval.
Staff comment?
No comment?
Public hearing is open. Anybody would like to comment? Public hearing is closed. Any other comment from the commission? Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a public hearing to approve or deny the following subdivision for final plat. Villas at Sage Field, third filing, lots 34 through 38, McLennan Associates.
Ellen Jackson with McLennan and Associates, asking for your approval. There weren't any comments, no punch list items, so.
Staff comment?
We don't have any comments on it.
We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this? No? I'll close the public hearing. Any comment among the commission? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. All right. Ordinance, public hearing to recommend approval or denial of the Parish Council amendments to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code. Ordinance SR 14-07, revisions to the subdivision regulations in the Uniform Land Development Code pertaining to family partitions. Staff comment?
Yes, we've had a couple months here of staff reports and public hearings, and you guys requested 30 more days to continue looking at it to make any more changes. So that's what we're here for tonight, to see if there's any more commission comments prior to sending it to the council.
I'd like to open a public hearing. Do I have any comments on this ordinance? Have you turned in a card? But you can just write your name down and give. And please state who you are and where you live.
Okay. My name is Sue Heath. You have seen me here for the last few meetings relative to the family petition. And I just had a few comments after being here for the last meeting. I don't think any more changes have been made to the proposed changes to the family petition since last week. But I felt that we got off on some dirt roads, so to speak. I think first and foremost, we have to remember that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ricky, the family petition is a nice-to-have thing. It is not mandatory. There are other ways to divide property. And as I understand it, Gonzalez is not under the rules of the family petition. So I think we need to remember that there are other ways to divide property. Secondly, I think the fewer substantive changes we make to the family petition as written today, the more likely we are to get it approved by the parish council. There was some talk last week of broadening the definition of hardship to take care of a couple of different cases that were mentioned here. I think if we start changing the definition of hardship and making other substantive changes, we won't get it approved. And the last thing is, I had offered some language last week to try and make the family petition ordinance stand alone and make it clearer. I think I can offer a new perspective from the standpoint that I knew nothing about family petition. I had not attended a planning commission meeting before. I didn't know where the ordinances were. But after the first meeting I attended with my neighbors, when we were concerned about a particular request, I made an appointment with Ricky, and he was gracious enough to answer my questions and told me where I could find the ordinances. So I went to the family petition, and I saw that a family petition is based on hardship, but I didn't find a definition of a hardship. So I looked for hardship. I found it under the variance. At the time, I didn't realize the family petition was a variance. So we have two separate provisions in there, and they are somewhat connected, although it's not clear that they are. For example, it says what a hardship is in the variance section, not the family petition, and it says that the hardship cannot be self-created. That's in the variance, not the family petition. If those two things had been clearly stated in the family petition, I think this meeting over our particular concern would have been over in a few minutes, because it would have been very clear to you that you had every right to reject it based on the fact that the hardship in our case had been self-created. So I would offer that you at least consider putting some clarifying language. If not what I propose, make some changes to it, but at least put the definition within the family petition ordinance itself so that people don't have to look or guess as to where they can find it. I think that would have saved all of us a lot of time. And you wouldn't have had to listen to me talk so much. And again, I think Matt Pryor had offered a concern about that, but then I think you said you spoke with the DA who said, yes, that y'all had done the right thing, you'd used the
Well,
information.
there was a letter that actually the former attorney for the Planning and Zoning Commission, Jesse LeBlanc, who's now Judge LeBlanc, had authored about that, where I believe, as I remember, that her opinion was that a hardship is a variance and subject to, or, excuse me, a family partition is a variance and subject to the rules of variances, which address the exact concern that you said.
Right, but,
And I didn't read that till after that issue that we had. so.
okay. I just think it's important to include it in the family petition, then you wouldn't have had to go out and research that. And the next planning commission coming along would have that information right in front of them. You know, it would be clearly stated, there wouldn't be the hand-wringing and all the discussion that we had about the family petition, I believe, if that information were contained within the family petition. So I strongly encourage you to look at that language and consider it for inclusion.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? In that case, I'm closing the public hearing on this. Any discussion further on the commission?
Okay, I'd like to thank Ms. Heath for coming again. I appreciate the efforts that she's done. And I agree that what she said in that the idea of the right to a family partition is not something that's embedded in the Constitution. It's not a God-given right for people. It's an exception to what we have tried, what this, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Parish Council has tried to do in terms of development codes. We have a set of development codes, and this is just an exception to that. So anything we do to curtail that is not really taking anyone's rights away. It's just getting rid of an exception to the code, and it's an exception which has been used by people who are not really intending to develop a family partition. They're using it to go out, skirt the regulations and try to get around the development regulations. So I agree with her, and I think we should act, and at the appropriate time, I would move that we send this ordinance to the council.
I would say on that, when we talk about this, and I think a good point was made by Ms. Heath about this, we're talking about hardship family partition, which hardship is not defined except in the variance. And I think it's worthwhile, and it's a very simple remedy to put in there any amendment on this to say as a preamble, this is considered a variance to the otherwise normal zoning procedures, and therefore subject to the requirements of 17 section, or Title 17, Section 4093 concerning variances. And that way, and she's absolutely right about that, when we sit there and say, well, was it self-created? Can we limit somebody because they created the hardship themselves? We don't have to look, it's all right there, and we're not going through that. So that would be the amendment that I would make to these amendments that have been proposed. Although I think that that's been addressed in there. I think if it is a variance, as we learned, and Ricky, I think you confirmed that for us, that it has to be subject to those variance rules. And just connecting it is an easy way to do that. It gives consistency on the language throughout the code, which is always easy for people to understand.
Any other comment?
Council,
Oh, no,
response?
I just wanted to clarify, the family partition is planning, and under those ordinances, it's not zoning in nature.
Well, no, it's a, yeah,
All
no.
the variances are addressed under zoning. I mean, I think,
When you look at it, it's, the family partition is in, let's see, Appendix 4 of subdivision regulations. I think it's 17-401 and continuing, and 4026 is the family partition. 4093 is the variance section. So that's how I would tie it in there and say, especially in terms of hardship, because that term which is in this code, a legal term of art. It's not like a hardship of financial things, or it's basically the way the land is planned out. We need to be consistent through that of hardship means this here, and it's the same throughout the code. If we tie them in like that, I think it alleviates a lot of problems.
Any other comment?
How do we do that?
Well, Matt can offer a motion
I-
to accept it with his amendment.
I would make a motion then to accept this amendment, and paragraph A read, "A family partition is a variance and subject to the requirements of 17-4093. And then paragraph A on what we have would become paragraph B, and would re-letter the paragraphs accordingly to add that paragraph in as a preamble. Would be my motion to accept this, or this
As amended by you.
as amended with that, yes. Thank you, Marty.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Do I have any other, well, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So it passes. All right. Okay. Staff report?
Before, Mr. Chair, before we do that.
Yes, sir.
This was controversial and difficult, and we did it out in the open, which was why we're here. And I think for the citizens, that's a good thing. They saw it happen. They had a lot of input, a lot of changes were made. And to me, I think the process is working. So congratulations to all of us.
Thank you, sir. Staff?
We're good. We're good.
Oh, I thought for discussion for our revisions of the.
Oh, Ben is not good, though. He has something to say.
Okay.
We had somebody come to us fairly recently about developing a townhouse, or as a condo, it's existing as a condo, and taking it over, converting it to townhouses. And our current townhouse regulations are poor and they're vague. So Ricky and I went through and looked at some other places and compiled sort of some new regulations on how townhouse subdivisions could be addressed in the future. And they're in here. I'm not gonna read them to you. We're requesting that we have a public hearing on it next month.
So, would you like us to, do we need to vote to have the public hearing on that? So do I have a motion to hear this next meeting?
Before we do that,
Yes, sir.
could we get a little bit more detail on the specific changes from the current ordinance to what you have proposed?
The main thing you'll see is changes in, I guess, more descriptive information on what size lots we will allow, how the common area within them will work, and how parking will work, and how the access drives will work. Our current,
Looks like it's got a lot more detail in it, huh?
Right. For all intent and purposes, the townhouse development code that was here before, you're going to see essentially the same kind and style and number of, I mean, we're not changing density or any of that, but we've clarified the language because it used to talk about a townhouse development having a 25-foot yard. And what they were trying to say is we want to maintain a 25-foot buffer all the way around so that the townhouses are no closer than 25 feet to the boundary. But it just wasn't clear the way it was written. So now we've clarified that you're going to have that buffer yard, and each townhome has to have a private courtyard that can be fenced, and the buffer can be part of that. And then you're going to have a requirement, I think it's 200 square foot per unit, that you're going to have as rec space, and that rec space can't be a back of house space. It's got to be near all the houses. It's got to be, I think it's centrally located. There's some other language in there. We're just trying to clarify the rules we already have, not trying to, create these super dense urban pockets, but just saying what were the rules that were already in place, and if somebody wanted to do one and we had to interpret the code, what language would we need to say, is this what we're expecting? And so that's what we've tried to do, is add some more language in there to make what a developer is looking for. You know, they want to come to the parish and say, hey, I want to develop a townhouse subdivision. The code as it wasn't clear. You didn't know what all the requirements were. And so we've tried to make it a little bit clearer.
Does this ordinance allow townhomes with common walls?
Well, townhouses do have common walls.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So,
Mhm.
but if you have a 25-foot
Okay, so
yard completely surrounding each
So,
townhome, then you can't have a common wall.
once again, your site is 5 acres. That 5-acre site is going to front on a road. We're saying that the sides that don't front on the road is going to have a 25-foot buffer yard. Then you're going to have some kind of an infrastructure, a road, where those units are going to access off of, and those units within each of those lots, because you're going to lot off of that road, they're going to have a private courtyard space that we've defined how big that needs to be. It needs to be fenced, it needs to be enclosed, it could be walled, or it could be a fence. And then we're saying you need a common rec space, because those townhouses generally don't have a big yard, so provide a space where if you need to do a gazebo, where you can cook out and do a community function, you know, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, these are all common national standards. We've just tried to include them in the code so people know what are the expectations if you're going to develop a townhouse subdivision.
Does that also include condo?
Well, condos are
developments?
different because condos are one lot. And so you have to be commercially zoned already to do a condo. And a condo, typically, you're not owning the property, so you're not building a road. So a condo, typically, you're going to have parking lots that the units have access to. They may have individual parking bays or whatever, but you're not owning ground in a condominium. In a townhome, you own wall-to-wall, you know, ceiling to air, basically. We've defined how can you park for a townhome. We require 2 parking spaces on your lot. Those can be in a garage, those can be in your driveway, but we require guest spaces. How do you build guest spaces in a townhome development? So we've defined how off-street parking works, or if you want to do on-street parking. The current language in the townhouse says you can have all of your townhouses accessed off of a private lane. Just go to the ones on 73 and you look at what they did. They basically built a 20-foot wide driveway and develop townhouse. That's not the way to build a townhouse subdivision. You need to have a public or private street to a standard, and then if you want to do private lanes where they access from the rear, you know, design it that way. So, you know, we've added some language to clarify our expectation for those types of developments.
So do I have a motion to put this on the agenda as a public hearing for next meeting?
I also move that we,
A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Engineering staff report? No? We don't have engineer. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for clarification on something back on item 11? Did we move to amend or agree to amend the ordinance and to reconsider it here at public meeting?
No.
Or to amend it and send it
Send
for
it.
approval?
we
to the
sent it for
council?
approval, subject to, including the amendments that Matt made to it. And we all voted to send it to
the
the
council.
Okay, I just wanted
council
to-
with
clarification
those
on that.
amendments.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? We'll meet back in 5 minutes for the zoning.